Hello. Hi, everyone. This is Beth Stewart, the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at the University of Arizona Eller MBA programs. We're really thrilled to be talking with you all today. I'm joined by Adam Tank, who is one of our stellar first-year MBA candidates, and he's going to talk to you about selling yourself and how you can stand out to get into the MBA program of your choice. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Hey, everybody. This is Adam Tank. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today. I think there are some critical things that aspiring MBA candidates need to know. One, about MBA, and then two, about, of course, how to get in. So the primary topic of today's conversation is going to be how to really set yourself apart from all of the other candidates that are also applying to the schools of your choice. So the first slide we have is a picture of a bunch of different birds. And as simple as this photo looks, I do want you to take a quick look at it and think about a couple of things. So obviously the first is the question right on the title slide, which is, who did you notice more? Of all of these animals, which did you notice the most? And I would assume for most of us, it's going to be the bird that's at the bottom portion of the screen. That, in and of itself, is not a revelation to anybody, right? It's very clear that this bird is sitting out all alone, but it is very unique and it is very individual. But what's important to notice is that compared to all of the other birds, it really isn't that different. Their colors are the same. They're about the same size. They're all facing pretty much the same way. And that is not unlike exactly what it's like to apply to MBA schools. When you go in and you're writing your applications and you're taking the GMAT and you're doing all these different things, you're going to look very similar, at least on paper, to everyone else applying. There's only going to be a couple of differentiators. So the question really becomes, how do you sell yourself and how do you stand out in order to get into the dream school of your choice? Before we start, though, I want to let you know who I am, how I got into MBA school, and perhaps more importantly, what did not set me apart and what did set me apart. And then we'll talk about a couple of things you should be thinking about as far as how to get into the school and really make yourself unique compared to all of the other applicants in there. So my name is Adam Tank. Clearly, I like to have a little bit of fun in life. I like to do things that are maybe a little bit off the wall. Here's a picture of me skydiving, which was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed it. But it's these small experiences and these type of unique opportunities that I feel really helped set me apart when I was applying to get into the University of Arizona. The first is that my undergrad degree was from Kansas State University. I graduated with degrees in microbiology and leadership studies. Here's a picture of me with my diploma. Again, in 2010 is when I graduated. And then I went on to work for a company called General Mills, which is fairly large here in the States and around the world. And then I also spent some time in a foreign country, Brazil, where I work for a small gourmet food manufacturer down there. I'm here now at the University of Arizona Eller College of Management receiving my MBA, and I have a focus in entrepreneurship. We'll talk a little bit about why that is and where my background has led me to this point. But first, I wanted to tell you how it was that I stood out during the application process. And this seminar is not just to talk about me. There will be quite a few things that have relevance to me personally, but I want you to think about how these things might apply to you and think about how everybody else that you're applying to get into these schools with is also going to have unique differentiators, and that you really have to set yourself apart from everybody else. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what were the things that I was not stellar at applying to MBA school? And I think it's a misconception for a lot of people to think that they may be stellar in a certain couple of areas that a lot of people tend to talk about. So the first was my academic pedigree. So I went to a state school in the United States. It doesn't carry an Ivy League title. It wasn't a private university. It wasn't the top school in my field, which was microbiology. So I did not get into MBA school because I had a very powerful brand name school on my resume or on my application. Secondly, I will tell you that my GPA, in fact, was not completely stellar. I had a couple poor grades. I also had a couple great grades. But really, compared to everyone else, it was nothing spectacular. And I'm happy to share more details about exactly what the GPA was and exactly what my different scores were. But I will tell you that if you don't have stellar scores and you don't have a stellar academic pedigree, do not worry, because you can still get into the school of your dreams. Talking about scores, my GMAT score also was not incredibly impressive. It was good, but again, compared to the other hundreds, if not thousands of people applying to the schools that I applied to, it was nothing spectacular and certainly would not have stood out on a resume or on an application when the admissions committee was looking at it. So, if it wasn't my academic pedigree, if it wasn't my GPA, and if it wasn't my GMAT, how in the world did I even get accepted to an MBA school? The first is that I had a pretty unique startup business experience. I was very fortunate in college and after college to be involved with a couple of different small businesses that were international in reach and that did some really, really unique things in terms of energy development and policy all across the world. And I think that that was something that really helped set me apart from other candidates, especially when I didn't have, again, that academic pedigree, the GPA, or the GMAT scores. I was also extremely involved in leadership activities. Very, very involved, not only in college, but in my professional career. So for those of you that are either, if you're still in school and you're looking to apply, get involved as quickly as you can in any campus organizations, off-campus organizations. If you're in the professional world, you can join trade organizations. You can join groups like Toastmasters International, which is a public speaking and communications organization. You might do volunteer work on the side. Any of these things are all going to help set you apart from the whole crowd of other individuals that are applying to get into school. Additionally, my work experience, I think, was a huge differentiator. As I mentioned, I work for General Mills, which is a pretty well-known company here in the U.S. And compared to other applicants, that type of experience was fairly unique, especially to the schools I was considering applying to. You tend to have a lot of folks applying to MBA school coming from finance, accounting, consulting, investment banking, some in the tech world. My experience I really like to hinge on because I was in a very, very interesting field. One was food, which is kind of rare, and then two, again, for a very, very large organization. So that was pretty neat. I also had quite a bit of international travel experience. Here you see a picture of me in a place called Lesotho, which is within the country of South Africa, but it's its own nation. And I got the opportunity to spend about 2 weeks traveling through remote mountainside villages and interacting with a lot of locals. And I did write about my international experiences on my applications, which again was a huge differentiator compared to all of the other people who were applying to school. And lastly, I have foreign language experience. So if any of you speak another language or are taking courses or have taken courses or have any interest in foreign languages or cultures, that can also be a huge differentiator, especially if the programs you're applying to have an international type of focus. A lot of MBA programs have an international curriculum. In the case of the University of Arizona, we have just spent 2 weeks abroad in Southeast Asia, learning about the culture, learning about the business, and I know that many other MBA schools also do the same. So it's a good way to be able to tie the curriculum of the school you're applying to what your background is. It's an excellent way to set yourself apart. Enough about me. The question now becomes, how do you, as an aspiring MBA applicant, set yourself apart from the crowd? What are the types of things you should be thinking about, and what are the types of things you can be doing in order to get into the school of your dreams? So there's a couple things that we need to be thinking about. Number one, what would you do if money were no object? If you had all the money in the world, or somebody gave you a blank check and said, go do what excites you most, go do what you're most passionate about, what would you be doing with it? If you know the answer to that, or even if you don't, maybe you just have a couple of ideas. Those are good starting points for the types of ideas you can talk about in your essays, on your application letters, even on a resume, if you go out and start doing these things, even if it's a small fraction of the total thing of what you want to do, they're going to be differentiators that will set you apart. What about if time were no object? If you could literally do anything and you had all the time in the world to do it, what would you be doing? Again, a great thing to think about and a good thing to talk on when you're applying to MBA schools. And finally, power. If you could control everyone else in the world and you could direct them in any form or fashion you wanted to, what would you have them do? What might you build? What type of career would you have? What type of volunteer activities would you engage in? What types of teams would you participate in? All of these things will help define you as an individual and as an applicant. Another really, really important part of the entire process is thinking about any related expertise you might have that either the school has expertise in or the career of your dreams has related expertise in. So suppose you have expertise in ballet. Very, very strange type of unique experience that not a lot of people have. And by strange, I don't mean odd. I mean a very, very unique and defining experience. So someone coming from a background in ballet or theater, which is not uncommon for people to have varying backgrounds applying to MBA school, how does that relate to getting in to the school of your dreams? Well, number one, that experience takes a whole lot of passion and dedication. And for any of you that have a unique experience, I highly recommend focusing on your passions and your dedication, because those are two things that will certainly look very, very good to admissions officers as you're applying to the school of your dreams. If they see that you're passionate, they see that you're committed and dedicated, they know that you will also be passionate and dedicated to their process and to their school. Maybe you have something else. Maybe you have related expertise in a science field or a tech field or a consulting field. How do those experiences relate to the academic coursework of the school you're applying to or the expertise of the school you're applying to? Some schools are known for finance, some for marketing, some for entrepreneurship. Maybe your background relates to one of those things. If that's the case, you should absolutely talk about it in your application. What hobbies do you have? What do you like to do for fun? What are the types of things that you do outside of school or outside of work? Those tend to be very, very good indicators of who you are as an individual. And ultimately, that's what the admissions folks want to see at the various schools. They want to know, who is the person applying? Who are they really? What types of things do they do in their spare time? And how will they be of value to our program? Maybe you're an outdoorsman. Maybe you sing on weekends, even if it's karaoke. Maybe you're a big video gamer. Maybe you like to play sports. Maybe you paint. Maybe you're a photographer. All of these things are very, very unique and can be written about in your application's essays. Many of us have gone through some significant obstacles in our lives and have overcome them. Sometimes it's illness. Sometimes it's death in the family. Sometimes it's moving from one country when you're very young to another. Whatever it might be, each of us has had our own obstacles. And if it's a powerful one, and if it's had an impact on your life, it would be a great idea to discuss it in an admissions essay if applicable. Again, admissions officers want to see someone who is dedicated, passionate, and is following their dreams and is in the pursuit of their goals. So if you have overcome something that is very significant in your life, it's always a good idea to talk about something like that. For many folks, if possible, it's a great idea to visit the campus of the school that you're considering applying to. Getting a feel for what the students are like, for what the location is like, for how the professors are, for how your soon-to-be fellow classmates interact with one another. They are all important pieces of the puzzle for why you might choose a particular school. If you're unable to visit the campus in person, you can certainly call or find someone to talk to who has either gone to the school or is currently there, and they can help inform you about what the campus is all about. Occasionally, admissions officers will allow you to attend classes. Maybe you have to do so online if you're at a distance, but if you can go in person, that also works too. In your essays, if you can talk about, when I visited X campus, I got to see these types of things going on. And these things really excited me about attending this particular school and were a big reason about why I applied to get into this particular school. It's a very impressive thing to do that not a lot of applicants have done prior to you. Again, another unique differentiator that can set you apart. Another important piece of the pie is to talk to individuals who have either attended the school, have graduated from the school, or are in a network of individuals that you can talk to that are familiar with what that school is all about. So in an essay, if you were to say, I've read great things online about this school, and I think it's really, really neat that they focus on something like entrepreneurship, for example. That's great, and it shows that you've done some research. But what would be more impressive is if you had talked to an alumni that graduated with an MBA from that school who had maybe started their own business. And when you talk to them, even if it's just by email and question and answer, you will soon find out how their experience in graduate school related to what they're doing now, and will prove to you and to the admissions committee that you are very serious about pursuing whatever the expertise of that school is in. Ultimately, the message is you have to find a way to provide value to the business school and to the person reading your essays. So the question is, how can you be of value to these schools? You might think, you know what, I haven't even graduated from school yet. There's no way I can be of value. Or maybe you've been in the working world for 15 years, and you're thinking, how can I possibly be of value to an MBA school that has nothing to do with what I've done for the last 15 years of my life? I guarantee you that you can. And you really have to think deeply, passionately, and thoughtfully about exactly what it is you can contribute to that school, to your classmates, and what excites you about going to go back and get your MBA. So think about the various things we discussed. If money were no object, if time were no object, if power were no object, any obstacles you may have overcome, any related expertise you have, those things all add value to the school, and they add value to your future classmates. So to wrap it up very quickly, if there's no other message you get from this seminar, it's this. You need to be of value to the business school that you're applying to in order to set yourself apart and differentiate yourself in order to get into the school of your dreams. Think about your unique experiences. Think about who you are as a person. Think about the types of things that you truly enjoy doing and what you plan on doing after you graduate. And talk about those. Be very candid in your admissions essays. Paint a picture of who it is that you are as an individual. Tell a story about who you are and where you want to go. And I guarantee that you will set yourself apart from everyone else applying to business school. I am very confident that each and every one of you will get into the school that you so choose. Just remember, it's all about setting yourself apart, being an individual, being unique. I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions about what we've discussed, please feel free to submit them via the Q&A in the chat box on your computer, and we can answer those now. If you have any questions beyond or would like to contact me or Beth about the MBA process or our university, feel free to email us at uaellermba@eller.arizona.edu. Thank you. So we have a question that is related to the university CGPA to GPA. My assumption is that that is an international GPA or a different GPA that may not be on a 4.0 scale like the one here in the U.S. The individual schools will work with you. So let's say maybe you go to an international school that may not even have GPAs. Maybe it's on a different type of scale or basis. Most typically, all of the admissions officers from the various schools have seen individual, very different, unique profiles, which includes GPAs. And so they're typically more than willing to work with you on those things. Okay, so we've got another great question here. The question is, do leadership skills, international exposure, and volunteer work, are they enough to set me apart, or should I find a quality more unique and interesting? I will tell you that it sounds like these type of experiences make you a very, very well-rounded applicant. But what I would encourage you to do is try and really focus on one part of those that are very, very unique to you. So a lot of people can say, I led a sports team, or I led a university organization, or I led a club, etc. But if you can say, I started this club and there was one member, or when I joined we had 15 members, and now because of my leadership there are 50, that's something that's going to set you apart. Because again, most folks will have a broad overview or a well-painted picture of being well-rounded, but they may not really focus on the individual skill sets or the individual attributes that really make you successful. So if you can find something that the question is more unique and interesting, sure, go ahead and do so, but I would bet you that if you do have a variety of different experiences via international, volunteer work, or leadership, that one of those you can find something that's very unique to you that will help set you apart. Okay, we've got a couple of other questions coming in. So we have a question: how many days after I take the GMAT do I need to apply for business schools, or are there any time constraints? Those are totally dependent upon the individual school you apply to. I will tell you that your GMAT is good for, I believe it's 4 years. I want to say 4 years. I'd have to check, but I believe it's 4 years. You can check online with the GMAT committee. But after you take it, you have 4 years then before your GMAT score becomes invalid and you have to retake. So feel free to take the GMAT multiple times before you go to school. That way you can get your score a little bit higher. Most schools tend to take the highest score that you have received on that test. Okay, we have a question in regards to a particular essay. So this is actually a very common essay question that a lot of schools like to talk about. So the question is, I have an essay question that is geared towards the brand of the school. How can I add to the brand success? It confuses me as I know the school specialization and I can talk about me, but branding is somewhat hard to address. That's a really good question. So there's kind of two parts to this question that I think are very important to think about. One is the brand of the school, and two is your personal brand. And so when you go to add value, either to the school or to somebody else, you have to think about what you bring to the table and what your personal brand is. So the first thing you're going to want to start out doing when looking at the brand of a school is, or what I would do, and that's sitting next to me, is look at the school's online profile and the types of publications that they put out. Because oftentimes a school will tell you, this is our brand. We focus on, let's say, innovation, application, and communication. That is their brand, and that is the brand that they use to publicly address everybody that might be interested in the school. So in your personal brand, if you can relate your experiences to their mission or their brand,
you're going to be golden. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to continue asking if you have any more questions. How do you recommend explaining a low GPA? It's a good question because, again, my GPA was not very good. So there are a couple of things. The first is to say that you were, one, incredibly busy doing other things. So other things being things important that might get you into MBA school. In my case, it was leadership activities, it was international travel, and it was studying other disciplines that weren't necessarily in my core skill set. And so when I wrote, some schools will allow you to write an additional essay explaining either a low GMAT or a low GPA score. Take the time to write, hey, these are the types of things that I was doing. This is why my GPA might be a little bit lower, but I can guarantee you that because of the other activities I was involved in, I can add more value to your school and more value to my future classmates because of it. Very good question. We have another question asking for tips for selecting the right school for you, especially if you are unable to visit the campus. There are a couple of things to take into consideration. One, of course, is again the online presence. So a lot of schools, if you really dig deep into it, will be posting videos on YouTube, videos on their websites. They will have posted stories about students that currently go there, and they may even have interviews from current students, faculty, or alumni that are either at the school or have been at the school before. That will give you a pretty good feel for what the school is all about. Of course, you also want to take into consideration just some basic geographic factors. So maybe you don't enjoy the snow. Maybe you don't enjoy cold weather. If that's the case, then you probably know you're not going to want to spend 2 years in somewhere that may have, negative temperatures for most of the year. If you like warm weather, it's the exact opposite. Maybe you want to be in a particular part of the world or a particular part of a given country. That's important to think about as well. And then finally, really think about the types of things you want to get involved in and who you are. Don't make the decision of a business school solely based on the name of the school, because oftentimes it's a place you're going to spend 2 years, and it's much better to be passionate and excited about the place you're going than it is to be not excited about it but happy just because there's a big brand name. Okay, this is a very interesting question. What do you do if you don't have written proof or certification to back up the activities you have done? Most of the time, you will not be submitting resumes, or you will be submitting resumes, but not diplomas or certificates or plaques or anything of that nature. But what you can do is ask, one, for recommendations from people that are familiar with your background and the activities you've been involved in, and use those to write your letters of recommendation. Or two, talk about specific examples of the things that you were involved in where it would basically be impossible for them, for an admissions officer, to not recognize the value of the experience. So if you're concerned that maybe you don't have proof that you were the leader of a given club in college, or maybe you don't have proof that you were a member of a trade organization when you were in the working world, if you can detail a particular experience or maybe a unique leadership skill from either of those experiences, that should be enough to set yourself apart. That will not require a certificate of some kind or written proof. Okay, so we have a question in regards to my GMAT is lower than a given school's GMAT average. Should I still apply, especially when the school is a favorite? My answer for you is yes, absolutely apply. You never know what's going to happen, and GMAT is only one part of the entire part of the application process. So if you have time, I would recommend that you retake the GMAT if it's considerably lower. If you're not within maybe 20 to 30 points of the average, I would recommend taking it and trying to up your score. But if not, don't worry. You can talk about your leadership skills and activities, your unique volunteer experiences, your unique background in a particular field, your hobbies, etc. Again, all of these things will help form a well-rounded profile that's going to set yourself apart. Okay, another great question. So as mentioned in the webinar, it would be good to have a discussion with one or a couple of alumni. Shall we approach them directly without any prior introduction? And would that be a good gesture? A very, very neat way to get in touch with alumni from the school is actually to call the school itself, or maybe the admissions officers from the office, and tell them that you would like to have an informational interview with alumni or a student from the current school you're applying to. Most admissions committees would not look down upon that. In fact, I think they'd actually be probably quite impressed that you were taking the time to go and speak to members of the school to really figure out what that school was all about. If you can't get to alumni or to students through that route, you can also look on LinkedIn. So www.linkedin.com. If you don't have a profile, I highly recommend it. But LinkedIn, you can do searches for people that have gone to different schools, different types of professions, etc. And if you send a message to them and let them know, I'm an aspiring applicant, I noticed that you attended this school, I would be very curious to do an informational interview with you, most people are more than willing to help, and it would not be seen as a bad gesture. These are fantastic questions. Okay, what is the minimum number of schools do you recommend applying to be on the safe side? This is a question that's very applicable to an individual. So it really depends on what you want to do and the types of schools you're interested in applying to. Again, if you're interested in something very specific, let's say you really want to do nonprofit, international-based microfinance work. There may only be 2 or 3 schools, business schools in the world that have a given specialization in exactly that. If that's the case, then all 3 would probably be a safe number of schools. That said, if you're not quite sure what it is that you want to do, but you have a general feel for the types of schools that you want to apply to or the types of things you're interested in, apply to as many as you can without decreasing the quality of your application. It's never worth submitting a poor application to a bunch of different schools where you could have submitted very, very high quality applications to just a few. You are more likely to get into the school if it's high quality, and you're more likely to get money to go to that school if your application is also high quality. Okay. What is the given weight given to each of the GMAT, GPA, letters, and essays during the admissions process? Again, this is dependent upon the school. It's totally unique. In fact, there are some schools that will waive the GMAT based on your background. Some schools will tell you that GPA isn't a huge consideration. Some will tell you that they'd like to see more work experience than others. Again, it's totally dependent upon the school. All right, another good question. What types of references add value to our application? I don't personally know alums from the school I'm applying to that I can ask to write a reference. References that provide value to your character are incredibly important, but also references that can provide value to ensure that you will add value to the school you're applying to are great references to have. So even if it's not someone that has direct ties to the school, if they can say, I know that X person has done these different things and have been very successful, and I'm also aware that this business school is interested and focuses on very similar types of things, you will be able to add value to the school, and you now have a reference that proves that you can add value to the school, and that will help set you apart. Okay, another question, is applying with just the minimum required work experience a good decision? It depends on the work experience, and it depends on the individual. So most schools, the reason that there is an average, well, a minimum required work experience is that a lot of schools want to see that you have applied what you learned in your undergraduate career into the real world. And so if you meet the minimum, that's fantastic, and I would encourage you to apply as long as you have very unique differentiating factors that will set yourself apart. So if you have a minimum amount of work experience, let's say 3 years in this case, and all other things equal, you go up against somebody that has 5 years of work experience. They're going to admit the person with 5 years. That said, there are things you can do that we discussed that will set yourself apart from that person that has the 5 years, even if you only have 3. Okay, the next question. Is there weight given to the rounds of admissions? Do we need to justify a late application or a late round admission or submission? This is also dependent upon the school, and most schools are very, very clear about what the, if we want to call it weightages, they give to the different rounds is. And so some schools will have 3 rounds, and they'll tell you that typically the 3rd round is much more difficult to get in, and schools will post this information online. Other schools will not. Generally, it's more advisable to apply in earlier rounds. That way, the school hasn't filled up their slots yet, and you have a better chance of getting in. Okay, we have no new questions now. Feel free to continue submitting them. Okay, next question. How important are volunteer social service activities while working, and how do I present them in the admissions application? These types of activities are very important if you can show that you're doing it because it's something you're really interested in. Again, you don't want to become involved in a volunteer activity just because it's going to look good on the MBA application or on a resume. That's about one of the worst things you can do, because the admissions officers want to see that you have passions and goals particularly related to either what that school does or what you have done with your background. So if it's much more important to get involved with, let's say, something like a local gardening organization, if you believe in sustainability and you want to have a career in maybe green energy or sustainable food operations, or you want to go into consumer packaged goods industry, that would be something that would definitely set you apart. Okay, the next question. So we have an individual that is very familiar which graduate courses or school he or she wants to go to. They're curious to know if there are any other courses that will help this person in attaining personal and professional goals. So yes, there are definitely ways you can figure that out. One of the best ways to do it is to find people, either via LinkedIn or via general web searches or through personal contacts, that are doing similar professions or things that you want to do with your future. And the more you can talk to individuals that are doing those things, the better you will be at determining what they've done with their background, how you can get to where they are, and be able to emulate their process to some extent in order to get to where you want to go. If you can't talk to people in person, again, the internet is a beautiful thing. So if you want to, let's say, get into chemical engineering management after an MBA, maybe you do take courses in chemistry at a local community college or a university, or even through online Coursera or Khan Academy type courses that currently exist. There are great online free courses that are put on by major universities that can help get you certified in a variety of different disciplines. Okay, another good question. Should we submit various certificates as proof to back up our resume with the application? Most schools will not accept additional materials that you submit with the application. So you want to be very, very aware of that. So when you go to look at the schools you're applying to, they may say, we only accept this number of pages, or we only accept these types of application materials and nothing else. And they'll tell you that if you submit anything else, that they're going to be thrown in the trash. So that's very, very school dependent. Another good question, does taking time out or taking time off, like joining Teach for America, have more weight or carry more weight than part-time social work? There's not really an easy answer to this question. I think what's most important is the experience that you gain from either. So someone that spent 2 years in an organization like Teach for America may or may not have had great experiences or interesting or unique experiences than someone who spent 2 years doing part-time social work while working a full-time job on the side. So what's what exactly that whom you've worked for or what you've done isn't as important as what you got from the experience and how you can apply that to your applications and how that will add value to the business school. Okay, very, very good question. I've heard that working on an alternative transcript could help with a lower GPA, in this case under 3.0. Is that true? I've received certifications in my field and have a lot of work experience. Would it help if I take other courses? If the other courses will boost that 3.0 or that other GPA, that would be fantastic. Again, there's typically a school average GPA for the schools you'll be applying to. So remember that if the average GPA is, let's say, a 3.5, then most people are somewhere in the realm of a 3.0 to a 4.0. So if your GPA falls within there, you're certainly good to go. Now if it's below, very, very far below the school average, you certainly could back up that GPA with additional coursework or certifications, in which case you'd probably want to put on a resume. But if the school does accept an alternative transcript, that may also be a good place to do so too. Okay, how much weight is given to my recommendation letters? Should the recommendation letter come from my job, as I am a working professional? This, again, sometimes is school dependent. Some schools require that you have a letter of recommendation from your supervisor. Others say anybody that has known you over your entire life. Some would prefer to see it from an academic perspective. The best bet for the letters of recommendation is to have somebody write a letter that, one, is familiar with the school or understands a little bit about what the school is about that you're applying to, but two, understands you and, again, how you can be of benefit and of value to that business school. So there isn't a particular weightage given to the letters of recommendation, but again, it's just another unique thing that can help set you apart from all the other applicants in the field. Okay, next question. A couple of schools have responded positively to my profile assessment. Is it a sign that my chances are quite good to get in, although my GMAT is way lower than the GMAT average of the schools? What I will tell you is that they probably do see promise in you, but that the GMAT is an important part of the entire application process. If it is considerably lower, I would definitely recommend retaking the GMAT and trying to get a better score. In my personal GMAT experience, the first time I took it, I was not happy with the score I received. I was slightly below the average for the schools I was applying to, and after retaking it, my score jumped considerably. And it was not looked down upon by admissions officers. I had submitted both the first GMAT score I received and then, of course, the second. And the second was the one they looked at and the one that they were more concerned about. And so if you can retake the GMAT, as painful as it might be, it's definitely recommended to do so. Okay, here's a good one. I have a GPA below 3.0, but there are no alternative transcripts available, and there are no community colleges to improve low grades. What do I do? Do not be discouraged. I can promise you that you can still get into the graduate school of your dreams. What you can do is perhaps your grades were low in a particular field or a particular type of coursework. In my case, it was mathematics. I am not a math guy. And so what you can do if you don't have community college available or you don't have a local university is take, again, online free courses or even additional study guides on the side. And this can become part of your obstacles essays or something you might talk about in part of your admissions package. So let's say there's something that's really dragging you down. Maybe it's your GMAT, maybe it's your work experience, maybe it's your GPA. It's important that you overcome those types of what could be seen as potential negatives on an application and turn them into positives. So in this case for the GPA, maybe it's that you start reading books in subjects that you weren't very good at. So if it's a math course, maybe you pick up a basic algebra book or a basic calculus book, even if it isn't practice problems, and in the admissions essays or in part of an additional essay that they may require or you may be able to write, state that I'm very aware that my GPA may be lower than the average. However, And these particular courses that really brought it down, I've been studying and I've been preparing myself in order to really get my mindset focused on that particular subject or that particular bit of coursework. Additionally, you can take online courses that are free. So if you're on the seminar, you definitely have access to the internet or go to a local library. And again, you can take great online courses from perhaps even the school you're applying to. So that is another way to be able to show, you know, my GPA might be lower. However, I've already taken a course through university, through the online system, and I did extremely well. Maybe I got the certificate in it, whatever it is, and that'll show you that yes, I am academically capable of going to business school, and even more so, I'm academically capable of attending the school that I'm applying to. Okay, I took the GMAT the first time, and it was above the school's average, but I thought I could do much better, so I retook it and scored much lower. I'm scheduled for a third retake, but I can't score higher than my first attempt. Should I still apply and rely on the admissions looking at my highest first attempt? Yes, absolutely. Always take your highest score. If you're confident that you can do better this third time around, then please, by all means, go ahead and retake it. But if not, your score is already above the average. You can probably apply and be just fine. But again, the GMAT is only one part of the process. You really have to look at things outside of the GMAT, GPA, and your academic pedigree that will help be unique identifiers that will set you apart. Okay, we have another question. Would you recommend retaking the courses that we did not previously score well if that is not our intended field, or just any course that we can earn a higher grade in? I would recommend retaking courses that you did not score well in if they are really bringing your GPA down that much. Again, GPA is one part of it, but if you can retake a course that will take your GPA from, let's say, a 3.3 to a 3.5, or maybe a 2.9 to a 3.1, that will do quite a bit for you in terms of the admissions process. That said, again, the GPA is only one factor, so maybe you can blow the GMAT out of the water and you'll have very unique experiences via your background or things you're interested in or hobbies that will help overlook that GPA that you might have. Okay. No new questions yet. Let's see here. Okay. So we have someone asking in particular about their given GPA. So is a 3.5 out of 4.0 with a master's degree in science considered low? It depends on the school. Most schools are going to say if their average is a 3.3, then you're well above average. If their average is a 3.9, then you're a bit below it. But either way, it's still a good GPA, and your chances are very strong. Okay, we have a question particularly about the University of Arizona. So why did I choose the University of Arizona? I will tell you that I applied to many different colleges and was accepted to quite a few others. But there are three main reasons. The first was their entrepreneurship program is absolutely fantastic. They're also very highly ranked in MIS, which is an important growing field. The second was that the cost was very affordable. So the University of Arizona tends to give out quite a few scholarships to its aspiring applicants if they have unique profiles, good scores, good GPAs, these types of things. And then the last was that it's a smaller school in a very warm state. So the fact that I only have 40 classmates is something that I really, really love. And to be able to get to know each and every one of the people that I'm studying with and working with, as well as being able to do it in a place that's always sunny and always warm is absolutely wonderful. So those are a couple of big reasons. Okay, if I could you please provide good sources for online certifications or any other useful sources to improve my low grade subjects? The first I would look at would be courseera.com. So www.courseera.com. So Coursera or Coursera. It's a great website that will allow you to take courses from a variety of different schools all over the world that upon completion of a given course, they're all online and they're all free, you will then be sent a certificate saying that you successfully completed the course. You can take it in almost quite literally any subject that you're interested in, and it's a good way to show that you have that you are very serious about your academics and that you're very serious about being an intellectual and going back to school and going to graduate school and being successful in there. I'm trying to think about some others. Some of the other things you can do is that any other useful sources to improve low-grade subjects. There we go, coursera.org. My apologies. So the link has been posted to the chat window. Yeah, Beth is going to jump in really quick.
Hey guys, I also just wanted to mention it's a good idea to just be up front and work with the admissions team at the schools you're applying to. Sometimes there are different ways to look at the data. For example, at the University of Arizona, we're able to just consider the last 60 units of someone's degree. If, for example, you had a rough couple of years in school, but really succeeded in the last couple of years, we can look at those and pull your GPA just from those last 60 credits. So there are often, you know, if you're working with a school where they give you personal attention, there are often things that they can look at.
Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for attending. If you have any other questions, of course, feel free to email us. And best of luck on your application and admissions process. I'm quite confident you all will do very well. Keep up the good work, and we will see you soon.